The underestimation. The Ingenuity wasn't much to look at by galactic standards. Its hull bore the scars of a dozen hasty repairs, patches of mismatched alloys bolted alongside sections of original plating. Exposed conduits snaked along corridors that had been rerouted to accommodate equipment that hadn't existed when the ship was first designed. To the Vraxians, it looked like a flying junkyard. To Captain Maya Chen, it was the most beautiful testament to human adaptability in the known universe. "They're hailing us again," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the communications station. "The Vraxian delegate is requesting our engineering schematics for the third time." "He seems confused." Maya smiled, running her hand along the repurposed mining drill that now served as their primary navigation control yoke. "Send them the same response. Earth vessels operate on a need-to-know basis." The truth was less about security and more about pride. If the Vraxians, with their gleaming silver ships and perfectly symmetrical designs, saw the tangled mess of workarounds and jury-rigged solutions that kept the Ingenuity flying, they'd probably refuse to let them dock at the Galactic Summit Station at all. The massive Vraxian escort vessel moved alongside them, its hull so polished it reflected the distant starlight like a mirror. It was at least 5 times the size of the Ingenuity, its lines so clean and perfect it looked like it had been constructed by mathematics rather than engineers. "Captain, they're scanning us again." Chief Engineer Takashi Nakamura called from the engine room through the intercom. His voice was partially drowned out by the rhythmic clanking of the secondary coolant pump. "Another retrofit that wasn't in any official manual. Want me to scramble our signatures like last time?" "No need, Hack. Let them look." Maya leaned back in her chair. "They won't understand what they're seeing anyway." The Galactic Summit was humanity's first official introduction to the wider interstellar community. After decades of observing Earth from afar, the Vraxian Alliance had finally deemed humans technologically adequate for limited diplomatic relations. The invitation had specifically requested Earth's top engineers to attend a symposium on shipbuilding methodologies, a goodwill exchange of ideas, or so they claimed. The Ingenuity slid into its assigned dock on the outer ring of the massive space station. Unlike the Vraxian ships with their automated docking procedures, Maya insisted on manual control all the way in. Rodriguez guided the unwieldy vessel with the precision of a surgeon, compensating for the slight lag in the port thrusters with practiced ease. "Perfect landing," Maya announced as the magnetic clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk. "Not bad for primitives using glorified mining equipment, eh?" Her crew laughed. They'd all heard the Vraxian ambassador's leaked assessment of Earth technology, functional but fundamentally unrefined. They utilize mining equipment repurposed for space travel. Quaint, but severely limited. Maya gathered her engineering team in the briefing room before disembarking. Takashi Nakamura stood beside Dr. Eliza Okonkwo, their theoretical physicist whose equations had made their unconventional FTL drive possible. Lieutenant Sunil Patel, their systems specialist, was still wiping engine grease from his hands. They didn't look like the delegation from an advanced spacefaring civilization. They looked like mechanics who'd just finished a difficult repair job. Which, Maya reflected, wasn't far from the truth. "Remember," she told them, "we're here to learn, not to impress." The Vraxians requested this exchange, so let's see what they're really after before we show our cards. "You think it's a trap?" Patil asked, finally giving up on cleaning his hands. "Not exactly," Maya replied. "I think they want to assess whether we're a threat. Our solutions are unorthodox by their standards. That makes them nervous." The Galactic Summit Station was a marvel of engineering itself. A massive ring structure with artificial gravity and environmental systems tailored to accommodate dozens of different species. The human delegation was escorted to the symposium hall by tall, silver-skinned Vraxians whose movements were as precise as their ship designs. The hall was filled with representatives from across the Vraxian Alliance, 11 different species that had been unified under Vraxian leadership for over 3 centuries. They sat in ordered rows, their attention focused on the central holographic display, where a Vraxian engineer was presenting their latest ship design. The Harmony-class cruiser represents the pinnacle of unified design philosophy, the presenter was saying as the humans were led to their seats in the back row. All systems operate on our standardized quantum network architecture, allowing for perfect synchronization across the entire fleet. The hologram showed a cutaway of the ship's systems, a marvel of integration where every component connected to a central AI core. It was elegant, beautiful, even, and to Maya's experienced eye, catastrophically vulnerable. She exchanged glances with Takashi, who had noticed the same thing. He raised an eyebrow slightly, their private signal for, "Are you seeing this?" Maya gave a nearly imperceptible nod. The presentation continued for another hour, with various representatives showcasing their contributions to the Alliance's unified fleet. The underlying message became increasingly clear. Standardization was their religion. Every ship, from the smallest scout to the largest dreadnought, operated on identical principles and systems. When it came time for questions, Maya raised her hand. The Vraxian moderator hesitated before acknowledging her. "Captain Chen of Earth." Maya introduced herself. "I'm curious about your emergency protocols. If the central AI experiences a cascading failure, what independent systems remain operational?" The room fell silent. The presenter blinked slowly, a Vraxian expression of confusion. "Cascading failures are statistically insignificant possibilities," he replied. "Our redundancy measures ensure 99.998% reliability. But that remaining 0.002%, Maya pressed. What happens then?" Another Vraxian stood, this one wearing the insignia of their military. "Perhaps the human delegation misunderstands our design philosophy. The strength of our fleet lies in its unity. Every component is part of a greater whole. The concept of independent systems is contrary to efficiency." Takashi leaned forward. "With respect, we've found that decentralized redundancy is essential for deep space exploration. Unexpected conditions require adaptive solutions." The military Vraxian skin took on a slight blue tinge, their equivalent of dismissive amusement. "Your vessels barely reach the outer edges of your own system. Perhaps when you've navigated the challenges of true interstellar travel, you'll appreciate the necessity of standardization." The symposium deteriorated from there. What had been billed as an exchange of ideas quickly revealed itself as a thinly veiled lecture. Human engineering was primitive, unpredictable, chaotic. The Vraxian Alliance had perfected ship design through centuries of refinement. Their way was the only logical path forward. By the third day, Maya had stopped asking questions. Instead, she listened. And the more she heard, the more concerned she became. "They've created the largest single point of failure I've ever seen," she told her team in their quarters that night. "Their entire fleet operates on the same system architecture. One vulnerability compromises everything." "It's actually brilliant," Elisa said, "until it isn't. The efficiency gains are remarkable. But they've never had to adapt to catastrophic failure," Takashi finished. "They've optimized for perfect conditions." Maya nodded. "Which is fine when you control every variable. But space doesn't work that way." "Should we warn them?" Patil asked. As a gesture of good faith. Maya considered it. "We'll try, but something tells me they won't listen." She was right. When Maya attempted to raise concerns about the vulnerability of unified systems during the next day's session, she was interrupted by the Vraxian High Commander. "We have observed your Earth vessels," he announced to the hall. "Your solutions are haphazard improvisations, signs of fundamental design failure, not innovation. While we invited you here in the spirit of inclusion, it is clear that Earth has nothing of value to contribute to galactic engineering discourse." The insult was delivered with such clinical precision that it took a moment for the implications to sink in. The human delegation was being dismissed, not just from the symposium, but from consideration as equals. As they were escorted back to their ship, Maya noticed increased activity throughout the station. Vraxian military vessels were departing in formation, their synchronized movements another display of their vaunted standardization. "They're mobilizing," she told her crew once they were safely aboard the Ingenuity. "I don't think this is a coincidence." "You think the symposium was just reconnaissance?" Rodriguez asked. "I think they saw something in our approach that scared them," Maya replied. "We don't fit their model. We're unpredictable." "Captain," Patel called from the communication station, "we're receiving reports from Earth. Vraxian vessels have established positions near our orbital defenses. They're claiming it's a security precaution after detecting design instabilities in our platforms." Maya's expression hardened. "They're setting up for a first strike. They've concluded we're too unpredictable to incorporate into their neat ordered alliance, and too resourceful to leave alone." "What do we do?" Takashi asked. "The Ingenuity isn't exactly a warship." Maya looked around at the patched-together bridge of their unconventional vessel. "No," she agreed with a slow smile forming. "We're something much more dangerous. We're a ship of engineers." As the Ingenuity broke away from the station, alarms began blaring. The Vraxian fleet had opened fire on Earth's orbital defenses, the first shots in a war that humanity hadn't expected, but had inadvertently prepared for through centuries of making do with whatever was at hand. "Set course for the battle," Maya ordered, "and get me a direct channel to Earth Command. Tell them we've identified a critical vulnerability in every Vraxian ship, and we know exactly how to exploit it." The Ingenuity accelerated toward Earth, its mismatched engines pushing harder than any Vraxian designer would have considered safe. But then, the Vraxians had never understood that human engineering wasn't about perfection, it was about possibility. And the possibilities were about to become very interesting indeed. The reckoning. The situation at Earth was worse than Maya had imagined. By the time the Ingenuity reached the orbital defense perimeter, 3 of Earth's 7 defensive platforms had already been reduced to floating debris. The remaining platforms were putting up a valiant fight, but against the synchronized precision of the Vraxian fleet, they were outmatched. "Status report," Maya demanded as the Ingenuity slipped into the shadow of Earth's moon, temporarily hidden from Vraxian sensors. "Earth Command has mobilized everything we've got," Rodriguez reported. 42 combat-capable vessels, another 36 retrofitted civilian ships. The Vraxians brought over 100 warships. "And they all run on the same system architecture," Takashi added, a hint of grim satisfaction in his voice. "Every single one." Maya turned to Eliza. "How long until you can implement your idea?" The physicist looked up from her tablet, dark circles under her eyes evidence of her sleepless night. "The base code is ready. It's elegant, actually. We're not trying to break their system, just repurpose it. But delivery is the problem. We need direct access to their network, which means getting aboard one of their ships," Maya concluded. Patel laughed nervously. "Sure, we'll just knock on their hull and ask if we can come in and rewire their fleet." Maya's expression remained serious. "Not quite, but close." She called up the tactical display, showing the positions of Earth's scattered defensive forces and the methodical Vraxian advance. "Notice anything about their attack pattern?" The crew studied the display. It was Takashi who spotted it first. "They're moving in perfect formation. Even when our defenses score a hit, they maintain spacing." "Exactly," Maya said. "They're so committed to their unified approach that they're predictable. And predictable means vulnerable." She outlined her plan quickly. It was audacious, borderline suicidal, and exactly the kind of unconventional thinking that the Vraxians would never anticipate. "Operation Patchwork," she named it, "because we're going to rewire their ships the same way we rewired the Ingenuity. With whatever works, however we can make it fit." Earth Command was skeptical but desperate. With Vraxian ships methodically dismantling their defenses, they had little choice but to approve Maya's unorthodox strategy. The plan required 3 teams. The first, led by Patel, would create a diversion using Earth's remaining ships, a chaotic, seemingly disorganized attack pattern designed to draw Vraxian attention. The second team, headed by Rodriguez, would coordinate with Earth's ground-based systems to flood Vraxian communications with contradictory data. And the third team, Maya, Takashi, and Eliza, would make the most dangerous move of all. "This is insane," Takashi muttered as they boarded the modified shuttle. "You know that, right?" Maya checked the seals on her environmental suit, noted and logged, "Chief Engineer. Any other observations?" "Just that if we pull this off, they'll be teaching it at the Academy for centuries. And if we don't, then it won't matter much to us either way," he replied with a grim smile. The shuttle launched from the Ingenuity with minimal power, drifting rather than flying toward the massive Vraxian command ship. To Vraxian sensors, it would appear as nothing more than another piece of debris from the destroyed defense platforms. As they neared the command ship, they could see its pristine hull up close, unmarked by repairs or modifications, a testament to Vraxian confidence in their original design. "Perfect targets," Eliza whispered as they aligned with the ship's external maintenance hatch. They never expected to need emergency access points, so they didn't bother hiding them. Using the access codes they gleaned during the symposium, displayed openly in demonstrations of foolproof security protocols, Takashi bypassed the external lock. The maintenance hatch slid open silently, and the three humans slipped inside. The interior of the Vraxian vessel was as immaculate as its exterior, gleaming corridors with perfect lighting, not a wire or conduit in sight. All systems were hidden behind smooth paneling, creating an aesthetic of seamless perfection. "Central network junction should be 3 levels down," Eliza whispered, consulting her tablet. "If their schematics are standardized like everything else, it'll be exactly where they showed in the presentation," Maya finished. "Let's move." They encountered few Vraxians as they made their way through the ship. The alien crew was focused on the battle, their attention directed outward rather than inward. Those they did encounter were easily avoided. The humans had studied Vraxian shipboard protocols exhaustively during the symposium and knew when and where crew movements would occur. Meanwhile, outside, Operation Patchwork's first phase was unfolding. Earth's vessels launched their coordinated, uncoordinated attack, each ship following its own unpredictable pattern, breaking every rule of conventional space combat tactics. To the Vraxians, it appeared chaotic, desperate, and inefficient. It was also impossible to predict. The Vraxian fleet's unified defense algorithms struggled to calculate optimal responses to ships that refused to behave according to tactical logic. Individual Vraxian commanders, accustomed to letting their integrated systems handle battle coordination, found themselves forced to make independent decisions, something their training had never emphasized. As the Vraxian command structure attempted to adapt, Rodriguez implemented Phase 2. Earth's ground stations began broadcasting conflicting data across all frequencies the Vraxians used. False ship signatures appeared and disappeared. Phantom communications suggested Earth reinforcements where none existed. The carefully orchestrated Vraxian information network began to show the first signs of strain. Deep inside the Vraxian command ship, Maya's team reached the central network junction, the heart of the ship's connection to the fleet-wide system. It was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline structure housing quantum processors that coordinated every aspect of the unified fleet. "We've got about 3 minutes before their security protocols noticed the anomalous access," Eliza warned as she connected her tablet to the system. "The moment we implement this, every alarm on the ship will trigger." "Then we'd better be quick," Maya replied. Takashi watched the corridor. Eliza's fingers flew across her tablet, uploading the code they'd developed. It wasn't a virus in the traditional sense. It was something far more elegant and insidious. Rather than attacking the Vraxian systems, it simply modified their standardized optimization protocols to include a new parameter, creative adaptation. "Upload complete," Eliza announced. "Now we wait." She was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Takashi tensed at the corridor entrance, but Maya pulled him back. "No confrontation. We need to disappear." They sealed the network junction and slipped into a nearby maintenance shaft, another standardized feature helpfully detailed in the symposium presentations. Outside, the tide of battle had already begun to shift. The first effects of Eliza's code were manifesting across the Vraxian fleet. Ships that had moved in perfect formation began to adjust their positions independently. Weapons that had fired in synchronized patterns began to adopt varied targeting solutions. To human observers, it looked like the Vraxian fleet was finally adapting to Earth's unpredictable tactics. To the Vraxians themselves, it was bewildering chaos. Aboard the command ship, Maya and her team made their way back toward the maintenance hatch, moving more quickly now as alarms began to sound. The Vraxian crew, trained to respond to specific alert patterns, seemed uncertain how to react to warnings that didn't match any scenario in their protocols. "What exactly did your code do?" Takashi asked Eliza as they paused in a junction, waiting for a group of confused Vraxians to pass. Eliza smiled. "I told their systems to value adaptation over standardization, to prioritize unexpected solutions over established protocols. Essentially, I made their ships think more like humans." "You turned them into improvisers," Maya realized. "In the middle of a battle." "Exactly. Their unified network is now actively encouraging individual ships to try different approaches. The more unusual, the more highly the system values it." The implications were unfolding dramatically in space around them. The Vraxian fleet, designed for perfect coordination, was dissolving into individual units, each now operating according to its own evolving parameters. Ships that had never been designed for independent action were suddenly forced to develop their own tactical solutions. Some adapted surprisingly well, their AIs discovering creative approaches that their designers had never intended. Others fell into confusion, their systems oscillating between contradictory directives. The most telling sign of success came when Maya's team reached their shuttle and reconnected to Earth communications. Rodriguez's voice crackled through their comms, barely containing his excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. The Vraxian ships they're fighting each other. Not directly, but they're interfering with each other's maneuvers, countermanding orders. It's beautiful chaos." As they detached from the command ship and accelerated away, Maya watched the massive Vraxian fleet that had seemed so unstoppable just hours earlier. Ships moved in erratic patterns, some firing at empty space where their newly creative targeting systems predicted Earth vessels might appear. Others attempted elaborate evasive maneuvers despite no immediate threats. "They'd never had to think for themselves before," Maya observed. Their entire design philosophy was built around the assumption that unified action is always superior. "A reasonable assumption," Eliza noted, "until you encounter something that requires adaptation faster than consensus can be reached." The Vraxian command ship began broadcasting on all frequencies, an unprecedented breach of their own communications protocols. The message was simple and shocking. "Cease hostilities. Withdraw to regroup." Earth's defenders, recognizing the opportunity, pressed their advantage. Not with overwhelming force, but with increasingly unpredictable tactics that the confused Vraxian ships could no longer counter effectively. Within hours, the remnants of the Vraxian fleet were in full retreat, their perfect formation abandoned, each ship finding its own path away from Earth. The victory celebration at Earth Command was still ongoing when a single Vraxian shuttle requested permission to dock. Inside was the High Commander who had dismissed the human delegation at the symposium, along with their leading system architects. "You modify our network," the High Commander stated when brought before Maya and Earth's military leadership. "It wasn't a question. We improved it," Maya corrected. "Your ships now have the capacity for independent thought and creative problem-solving. Some of them are actually performing better individually than they did as part of your unified system. This is not improvement. This is chaos. This is adaptation," Maya replied. "The universe isn't standardized. Why should your response to it be?" The Vraxian delegation exchanged glances, a silent communication that seemed less synchronized than before. "Our engineers would like to," Consult with yours, the High Commander finally said, the words clearly difficult. There are aspects of your approach that we failed to properly assess. Maya smiled. We'd be happy to share our expertise. Though I should warn you, human engineering can be a bit messy. We have observed this, the High Commander acknowledged with what might have been the barest hint of humor. It is also, we must concede, unexpectedly effective. In the months that followed, joint human-Vraxian engineering teams began the process of finding a middle ground between standardization and adaptation. Vraxian ships retained their elegant design aesthetics, but incorporated human-inspired modularity and independent systems. Human vessels benefited from Vraxian precision and efficiency, while maintaining their characteristic adaptability. The Ingenuity became something of a legend, the patched-together ship that had changed the course of interstellar relations not through superior firepower, but through the power of unconventional thinking. Maya was offered command of newer, more advanced vessels, but she declined each time. The Ingenuity suits me, she told Takashi as they supervised yet another unorthodox modification to their beloved ship. Every patch, every workaround, every imperfection, it all tells a story of problems solved and obstacles overcome. Plus, Takashi added, tightening a connection that no manual would ever recommend. It drives the Vraxian exchange officers absolutely crazy trying to figure out how it all works together. Maya laughed. That's just a bonus. As if on cue, a Vraxian engineer approached, their expression a mixture of confusion and reluctant admiration as they studied the exposed conduits of the Ingenuity's navigational system. Captain Chen, they began hesitantly, I have analyzed this configuration extensively, and I cannot determine how it achieves stability. Maya exchanged a knowing glance with Takashi. That's the secret, she told the Vraxian. It doesn't. We just keep adjusting it as we go. The Vraxian considered this, their silver skin rippling with what Maya had come to recognize as deep thought. This is contrary to all established principles of engineering. Yes, Maya agreed, patting the Vraxian sympathetically on their shoulder. That's what makes it work.